Hello and welcome back to Canberra Arts and Rogers TV at the Stage Door. We are so excited to be able to have such a full roster this fall, and it continues again with a production called Hell of a Ride happening at the Rotary Arts Centre November 8th and 9th. And I'm here with some of the creative team and cast of that production. So folks, welcome to the Stage Door. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
This is a really exciting show. It's great to see a theatre piece happening at the Rotary Arts Centre in such an intimate venue. I know it's something that they've been pushing for and really trying to adapt and be able to work out. We actually had Nicole and Brad on a little while ago, and they were talking about some of their goals. So great that this time's out to bring a theatrical piece, particularly an original theatrical piece. You know, this is the world premiere of this piece, November 8th and 9th. So, I think that's quite exciting. So congratulations on all the work that has went into that so far, because it's a lot. So we'll start by talking a little bit about each of you, though. So Rose, you are the director for the project, which is, lots going on there. But also, not only that, part of your process had to happen at home, which right now is not Corner Brook or Western Newfoundland or Newfoundland Labrador at all.
No.
So what was that process like? Before we get into a bit more about you, what was the process like of stepping into a director role away and then getting here?
It was so crazy. So my home base is Burlington, Ontario. So, and I was working a full-time job. So I'd be trying to get the schedule in Newfoundland time for them and then Ontario time for me, and then plan everything for after work, rush in my uniform to my office, close the door, get the dogs out, and then open up everyone on Zoom, and someone's delayed, and someone's lagging. So it was a little crazy, but it was fun. It was really good to be able to sit down with everyone and kind of just, despite being so far away, kind of all dig into something together.
Absolutely. So what would you say for you was the start of your journey into theatre?
Oh my gosh.
Going back to the beginning, to the roots.
The very beginning. I'd say it was 7th grade, and we were doing a play about Marc Chagall, the artist, and it was my first time kind of doing a play, and there was this crazy character who was like this crazy French art teacher, and I'm French Canadian, and so I was like, I have to. Yeah, that's for me. So I put on with mascara this big mustache and a little goatee, and I would go and I'd be like, "Can I read for the part?" with the mustache on. I'm like, "Hello, bonjour, c'est moi. The page like that."
Amazing.
And I was downhill from there.
That was the start. And your teacher was like, "Can you join the drama class?"
It was actually really funny because she was like, at the very end of that year, she was like, you might think you want to go into music, and a lot of people are going to tell you should go into music. You should go into drama.
There you go.
You're crazy enough. And here I am. Thank you, Mrs. Degenhart.
I think that's the reality, though. It is, as much as this is a terrible pun that I'm going to use, it is a hell of a ride to do theatre as a career. So I think it's certainly something that, we all always talk about this on the show with the artists, is like, where did it begin? Mm-hmm. So I think the next logical question for you before we move on down the line is, how did that start, as an actor? Then you got a degree here in Grenfell, here at Grenfell for acting. What led to you wanting to direct?
I don't know if it's my innate bossiness and my control freak abilities. I just really love theater as a medium. I've always loved storytelling. I've always really loved the process of world building. And so in our fourth year, we did directed studies, and I got the chance to direct a short play, Being Rose, not about me, unrelated. And having that process of being able to put each piece together and like have a vision and go through the entire process of putting it on stage really made me realize how much I enjoy doing that. It is so awesome to take so many talented people and use their talents in different ways to create one big, beautiful picture. Mm-hmm. And then also just to find a story and dig into the different layers of it and say, how can I take this layer and bring it out? And how can I take this layer and integrate it into that? And how can I play with the lighting to make it look like this? It's really just like playing with dolls, but with really talented and awesome people.
Yeah, no, exactly. It is, right? In many ways, you're moving people, you're guiding them to where they need to be for the vision of the whole process. So James, we'll move on down to you. You all graduated together, right? You were in the same year?
Kind of.
It's messy. Listen, it's always, there's a lot.
Yeah.
I joined late and then I left late.
But you know what? It's all a journey.
It's all a journey.
So, it's amazing that, in this acting program, so many of you have found kind of different paths within that field to explore. So I think that's great to be able to bring that together. So James, let's start at the beginning for you. What got you into the arts and theater?
I always say that when I was 3 years old, I wanted to be a superhero, and a couple years later, I said I wanted to be an actor, and it just went from there. I never stopped. But yeah, no, I grew up. Actually, I grew up as a Pentecostal pastor's kid for the first 2 years of my life, which may or may not have something to do with this. But I also, once Dad left the ministry, we moved to Pasadena, and I'd always wanted to get into theater because I got to see a lot of great stuff here. Like there's a lot of community theater, and I really adore Corner Brook for having such a vibrant art scene, because Newfoundland itself is so sparse and Corner Brook is just so rich with art and original art and just community art, and it's lovely. So I was really lucky to grow up here and in Pasadena, and get to grow up around these artists and sort of hone in on that and realize that this is a career I want to be a part of. It wasn't just like a childhood dream.
Yeah, and again, like Rose, you've shifted a little bit from that kind of acting, and you're doing both. You're wearing a couple hats in this production.
I am indeed.
Producer, actor, writer.
Yeah.
Probably props and
Oh, too many.
lots of roles, I am sure.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
But what playwriting started kind of in high school and then stopped abruptly in high school and then continued. Indeed. So tell us a little bit about that journey for yourself.
Well, when I was in high school, I've been writing since I was a child. I've always like the idea, the way that the writer creates has always been so interesting to me. But I'm a very shy writer, so I don't show it to people very often. But in grade 12, I wrote a play in a weekend that I was like, this is Citizen Kane. I have to show this to people, and it was called Allow Me to Introduce Myself, and it was again about two priests who it was much more serious. Took itself way too seriously, and it was about the church and mental illness and it was very deep-seated in the things that this show is seated in as well. But I showed it to my drama club, and they were very nice to me about it. But I found out a little while later from my teacher who that apparently it was too religious, which blew my mind because it had been meant to critique religion, right? So that drove me into a bit of a box for a while. I didn't want to write for a bit. But when I got to university, I still had all these ideas knocking around. So I ended up writing a play for my directed studies, which went fabulously. It was very well received, and it actually got a chance to be read at the St. John's Shorts Festival in St. John's, and it was well received there as well. So it gave me a little boost of confidence. And for me, this show is sort of that. Me retrying those central themes that I've wanted to write about for all my time, because religion has been such a big part of my life, and it's something I've always grappled with. So this is a very high anxiety situation for me. I'm terrified, but it's also it's something that's been coming for a long time. So I'm really excited to sort of close this part of the journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's certainly an exciting thing to be able to present. It's terrifying. Yes. I always think of that Stephen Sondheim line. I'm excited and scared. It's like, yeah,
of course. Yeah.
So I think that's both fair things to have. We can look forward, but also be quite nervous about
Yes, of
things at
course,
the
yeah.
same time. And we'll move on down the line now to Gavin. Gavin, you are one of the actors in this production. So again, same question. Where did it all begin for you?
Well, these two gave such good answers, such, really heartfelt answers. And I just got to say, I was that kid in class.
It was mandated for you.
Yeah,
it was
that's
like, you gotta do
basically
theater
how
class.
it started. I was always that kid, was always doing voices, making faces. I was always the class clown, And, the teachers didn't really, criticize me for it. They were like, it's fun. You're really fun. You should take that and use it to your advantage. And I did. When I was in grade 7, we started the drama festivals is how I mainly started. And we did a show, and it was more or less about the blackouts of NL a few years ago, and it was a farce. And I remember my character in it probably had 2 scenes, and I had probably about like 3 lines in each scene. And it was a news reporter going around. They were talking. They were saying, where were you during the blackouts? And my character was just like, I was on the toilet when the lights went out. And I would give this line, and the theater went up. And I got Best Supporting Actor for it. And I was like, and it was so funny because it was written on the award, Best Supporting Actor, Gavin J. Snow as the toilet guy. So I think about that a lot. And it kind of just, it went from there, I kind of, I love the feeling of getting up in front of a crowd and just entertaining them, almost distracting them in a way, and just having them enjoy themselves while they're there. And that's mainly where it stems from. And in so many different fashions I love to do it. And that's one thing I really love about working on Hell of a Ride is that, when James contacted me asked me to do it, the last time we had worked together was we did another play he had written called Trouble on Sunflower Place, which was about a kid's television show and it just goes haywire and ends up getting held up. And my character was sort of the main host of the show, sort of like a Steve from Blue's Clues type character. And it was a really goofy character, along with the puppet character Richmond. So it was just like and James and I are the same way in real life. It's just the goofiness going back and forth, and eventually someone has to come and be like, all right. So, and it was really funny when he offered me, and that was Rose in this case. There were many times during the rehearsal where James and I would just Rose would be giving notes, and James and I would just completely get distracted, and Rose would hold up her keys and be like, Rate it back in, come on now, come on.
Well, especially on Zoom, because it's
exactly. But
talking over each other.
But it was so fun. It was so fun to get to work with it again because James told me, he had intentionally written the show, with people who had worked with before to intentionally break their typecast, to give them a chance to try and step into a new pair of shoes, so to speak, and explore, new emotions that we may have not been able to before. And Dante I really like playing because Dante, in the long run of the show, was more or less the straight man. Because, Dante ends up walking into this crazy scenario in the show, and he has to watch everything go back and forth and be like, what the heck have I gotten myself into? So it's really fun to do that and look at comedy from the other, perspective. Because usually when James and I do shows, we're the 2 goofy characters, and that's not just for shows, that's for real life too. So, and more or less any times I get a chance to work with anyone who I've been with in university, I'll absolutely do it because we always had a fun time doing shows both inside and outside university. So, I couldn't turn it down because when James offered it to me, I was doing another show in St. John's at the time. He's like, well, we'll do it online, to start off with. And we did, and then I eventually came in here. We had to have another one of the cast members stand in for me the whole time while I was on Zoom, and they had to learn all my blocking and everything, and I came in, and Rose, to the other actors, okay, forget it, and just and I just went to the mix, and it was just, it worked. It seemed like at the time, online rehearsals, nobody likes doing them.
Yeah.
So, but once, it was a really smooth transition, and I'm really happy with that. And that's mainly because we all work so well together, and also because of Rose's direction. It was a really smooth transition.
Great, yeah. Well, it's a wonderful thing in terms of that relationship that you can build through those 4 years in a program that you then have connections, I graduated from Grenfell in 2016 and still have so many connections, a lot of them in Halifax now, but, this Easter I was able to go to Halifax and get to reconnect with everyone and see where they're working, what they're doing, you know. It's just incredible how interwoven and interconnected everything is in the arts, you know. I mean, Gavin, this summer I was able to go to St. John's and see You in Turncoat Hill.
That's right. Yeah.
Directed by Rory Lambert. And I had also played that role along with Rory and yourself. So
That
we did a
had to have been
3-generation
weird.
photo
yeah,
there.
looking back and going, what the heck is this guy doing?
So interesting, you know, to have that opportunity to, you know, right away have that connection.
Exactly.
And just to add to that, you know, the space that you rehearsed in, Open Door Theater, is ran by Adam Brake, who has also played that role before. So it's really like an amazing thing that in that microcosm of people, there's 4 of them who played that role in a relatively new show. So I think it's so wonderful to see that. And again, back to your point on the that drama festival where you were toilet guy, you know, I think it gives the old adage meaning of there are no small parts.
Yeah,
only
exactly.
small
Your part
actors,
is what
'cause
you make it.
You can take something and bring it, you know, with, you know, a couple minutes of stage time. It's like, is that guy? Check. You know, it's like, I think it was Helen Mirren as the Queen or Judi Dench. One of them, when they played Queen Elizabeth, was like 8 minutes of screen time and got the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. So it's like, do it well, and you shall be rewarded. So I think we're ready to kind of move in a little bit more about the show that we're about to get to see. So James, we'll start with you. You talked a little bit about it, kind of the journey of being a writer in this theme. So in a nutshell, without giving too much away, what can people expect from Hell of a Ride? What's the show about?
It is going to surprise you at every turn, I think. It's about 2 Pentecostal pastors who go on a road trip to a conference, pick up a hitchhiker, and accidentally end up with a kilo of cocaine. It sort of rides that line between farce and drama at times. So it's very much it's got some very grounded moments and some moments where it's very 100 miles per hour, like insane energies, which it was a joy to do as a writer, but it like seeing it in practice is so frightening. But then when it happens, it's just like we're in the point now where like, you know, my heart's so full. It's so crazy to see this show that was nonsense in my brain a year and a half ago come together as an actual narrative, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's a very near and dear show to me because it's sort of, I say it's my love letter to Pentecostalism because I grew up in the Pentecostal church, and my father was a Pentecostal pastor, and my grandfather was a Pentecostal pastor. I come from a long line. I was definitely the disappointment, but there is it's also these characters are based on them and my life going up through that background. So yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think it's interesting. You know, we as artists sometimes have to build social commentary. Often we have to build social commentary and critiques, whether we're taking on a show or creating a show. You know, it is divisive.
Of course.
You know, that is the nature of the arts. And I think with your background, it's very interesting because obviously you have respect for it through your family and generations, but also are able to step back and be a little critical of it. So I think that's quite commendable, you know, to be able to walk that line and exist in both of those spaces. So Rose, what has it been like to direct it? What have you got from that script and been able to kind of transfer? What's kind of the vision that you were able to build?
It's been so great. It's felt like the world's biggest game of tennis because there are so many highs, pun intended, and also so many, like James was saying, really grounded moments. And it kind of is a juggling act between farce and commentary on religious trauma, which as someone who survived the Ontario Catholic school system, I know my fair share of religious trauma. So it takes that and it critiques it and it questions it and it brings it to light, but it's also, it highlights, I think, the absurdity of trauma through the comedy elements of it because it's funny. It's hilarious. It's a hilarious show. And it's been such, it's just all about keeping those balls in the air of this is funny, this is sad, this is funny, this is sad, and how when you're going through things like having conflicts of faith and having conflicts within your community about faith, that's what it is, you know? It's absurd and it's painful, and we keep both those emotions inside and they coexist at once. And I think it's been really fun just kind of playing with that and seeing how can we keep the energy up and keep it fun and keep it light, but also put forth our message and our critiques and our questions and the truthfulness of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is a complicated thing, right? There's no way around it. You know, faith gets us as people, as society, through so much. But some people really have struggles with that too. And I think that's really interesting, quite exciting to see. So Gavin, you are not playing one of the ministers in the show.
No, I'm not.
So what has it been to step in as that straight character in between kind of you are the pivoting moment. The story does not happen without you, certainly. Because there's no kilo of cocaine without your character.
Without my character.
So what is it like to be that role that starts this whole thing happening, but then isn't quite as involved in the whole thing as the two people dealing with the problem you've created?
Yeah, no, it's so different, but at the same time, I love it. Every time I get a chance to, of course I love doing comedy. I think comedy's, always been one of my favorite things to do, and especially, comedic relief characters. But being able to step into the shoes of a character who's not that, and almost sort of a character who's kind of an antagonist in a way for the show is, I always wanted to, and James knows this, going through university, it was like, oh man, I want to try playing a villain. Sort of be this, almost scary kind of character. And this was, I guess, the first real show that I kind of got to, dabble in that a little bit. And that was the fun part, I think, for me, was being able to explore that range and how it feels to be in that shoe. But also, as you said, be the straight man, because, if you look at the situation that these pastors end up in, it's a pretty high stakes, very serious scenario they find themselves in. And, looking upon it, it's hilarious watching it. But if, you are these characters, it's, a big deal. And especially being my character walking into, the situation that hopefully, people may see. It's scary, it's very high stakes. It's, and that was our biggest part, was keeping that ball in the air of how high these stakes are, especially for my character, because, these two pastors ultimately take this plan that my character has and just trash it, and so it's very high stakes, and it's fun to watch the two pastors get on with the shenanigans that they get on with. There have been so many times where I'm watching the two pastors, do the things in the show, and I have to stop myself from laughing. There's so much comedy in there, but it's all rooted. It's all rooted, and you just watch it, and it's hard because my intention, to be, the comedic relief character is laugh along. But, with this character, it's fun to explore and be like, okay, I have to look at this from a very serious standpoint and not laugh and keep the tensions high and drive the plot. So it was different, and it was a bit of a challenge, but it was definitely a fun challenge. And
Absolutely. Awesome. And I think particularly, the cast member not present here, besides yourself, is Jerry, who was your prof at university, which is one of my favorite things about this industry, is so quickly can you kind of make those collaborations happen in the professional world, because once you're out there, you are in the profession, you are working, you are there, and it's such an amazing thing to have those relationships and connections. So the show's happening November 8th and 9th at the Rotary Arts Center. You could get your tickets through the Rotary Arts Center for the show. James, as we conclude, you mentioned on your socials that, you hope that people who are a part of the church come to the show in spite of the content and the story you're trying to tell. So I'd like to conclude with kind of who do you want to see and what do you want them to to take in?
Yeah, I think it's. I think there's a huge part of this show that is written for people who are just Pentecostal and still a part of Pentecostalism, because there's humor in it, and there's things in it that no one else is going to take such meaning to, if that makes sense. Like they're going to understand some things a little more because it's definitely targeted towards that audience. But also it does not shy away from some conversations that I think we need to be having as like if we are going to move forward, if the church is going to move forward in this landscape. I think there are some conversations in this play that I try to pick at that I think everyone who is part of the church should be cognizant of and should be talking about. And if you don't take yourself too seriously, you're going to get a good laugh out of it.
There you go. So I think that's a great ending point. You know, we're able to get together, we're able to laugh. Theater is divisive. It is also something that should spark social commentary and should start conversations. So November 8th and 9th at the Rotary Arts Centre, hell of a ride, a world premiere, Newfoundland Labrador premiere of this local piece of theater. So, you know, we really hope at the Stage Door to see you there supporting that and having those conversations, you know. It's one of those things that we can see something that we maybe don't ideologically get along with, but it can spark a conversation that's really important to have. And might give you a good laugh too. So thanks so much to the three of you for taking the time to drop by the Stage Door. And tune in next week when Canberra Arts and Rogers TV will be talking with Evan Smith, who's coming to Corner Brook and Stephenville with a show celebrating the music of Billy Joel and Elton John. See you next week at the Stage Door.